Hey, are you ready for chapter 7? Because I totally am. I got my book, got my Barnsey Bear, and he's got his Santa hat because that's right, Thanksgiving happened. It's time for the real holiday. Here we go, Christmas. So I don't really feel it. Well, I feel that way a little bit. But here in our house, we start decorating the day after. Really, Thanksgiving Day is acceptable to start decorating for Christmas because you want to enjoy all those decorations as long as you can. So yesterday, out came the Santa hat as part of the process. My grandmother's one of those people that packs away like the entire house and then redecorates everything with Christmassy things. So we just did my room yesterday. I'm not going to show you, but it's very Christmassy in here. It's lovely. Anyway, so here's Barnsey, and for Christmas, he gets a little friend, and he doesn't have a name. But his arms and legs move, which is kind of fun, and he has a Christmas sweater. So there we go. Anyway, chapter 7, let's get started. I had to stay home sick from work today. I'm feeling much better. So I considered not reading, but then I thought, no, if you feel well enough to sit up in bed and watch TV, then you can read. So that's what I'm doing. Okay. Chapter 7, The Sugar Snow. Oh, I love this one. So there's a bunny rabbit and some trees. Okay, for days, the sun shone and the weather was warm. Oh, remember we left the snow melting, so springtime is on the way. Okay. There was no frost on the windows in the mornings. All day the icicles fell one by one from the eaves with soft smashing and crackling sounds in the snowbanks beneath. The trees shook their wet black branches and chunks of snow fell down. When Mary and Laura pressed their noses against the cold window pane, they could see the drip of water from the eaves and the bare branches of the trees. The snow did not glitter. It looked soft and tired. Under the trees it was pitted where the chunks of snow had fallen, and the banks beside the path were shrinking and settling. Then, one day, Laura saw a patch of bare ground in the yard. All day it grew bigger, and before night the whole yard was bare mud. Only the icy path was left, and the snowbanks along the path and the fence, and beside the woodpile. "Can't I go out to play, Ma?" Laura asked, and Ma said, "May, Laura." "May I go out to play?" she asked. "You may tomorrow," Ma promised. That night Laura woke up shivering. The bedcovers felt thin, and her nose was icy cold. Ma was tucking another quilt over her. "Snuggle close to Mary," Ma said, "and you'll get warm." In the morning the house was warm from the stove, but when Laura looked out of the window she saw that the ground was covered with soft, thick snow. All along the branches of the trees the snow was piled like feathers, and it lay in mounds across the top of the rail fence, and stood up in great white balls on top of the gate posts. Pa came in, shaking the soft snow from his shoulders and stamping it from his boots. "It's a sugar snow," he said. Laura put her tongue quickly to a little bit of the white snow that lay in the fold of his sleeve. It was nothing but wet on her tongue, like any snow. She was glad nobody had seen her taste it. "Why is it sugar snow, Pa?" she asked him, but he said he didn't have time to explain now. He must hurry away. He was going to Grandpa's. Grandpa lived far away in the big woods, where the trees were closer together and larger. Laura stood at the window and watched Pa, big and swift and strong, walking away over the snow. His gun was on his shoulder, his hatchet and powder horn hung at his side, and his tall boots made great tracks in the soft snow. Laura watched him until he was out of sight in the woods. It was late before he came home that night. Ma had already lighted the lamp when he came in. Under one arm he carried a large package, and in the other hand was a big covered wooden bucket. "Here, Caroline," he said, handing the package and the bucket to Ma, and then he put the gun on its hooks over the door. "If I'd met a bear," he said, "I couldn't have shot him without dropping my load." Then he laughed. "And if I'd dropped that bucket and bundle, I wouldn't have had to shoot him. I could have stood and watched him eat what's in them and lick his chops." Ma unwrapped the package, and there were 2 hard brown cakes, each as large as a milk pan. She uncovered the bucket, and it was full of dark brown syrup. "Here, Laura and Mary," Pa said, and he gave them each a little round package out of his pocket. They took off the paper wrappings, and each had a little hard brown cake with beautifully crinkled edges. "Bite it," said Pa, and his blue eyes twinkled. Each bit off one little crinkle, and it was sweet. It crumbled in their mouths. It was even better than their Christmas candy. "Maple sugar," said Pa. Supper was ready, and Laura and Mary laid the little maple sugar cakes beside their plates while they ate the maple syrup on their bread. After supper, Pa took them on his knees as he sat before the fire and told them about his day at Grandpa's and the sugar snow. "All winter," Pa said, "Grandpa has been making wooden buckets and little troughs. He made them of cedar and white ash, for those woods don't give a bad taste to the maple syrup." So cedar and white ash are both a kind of tree. And so out of the wood from that tree, he's whittling, which means he takes a knife and scoops out wood or scrapes off wood and shapes the wood with the little knife. He's whittling little troughs, which is like a little, well, maybe I have a picture in a second. Yeah, they have a picture. Hang on. Okay, to make the troughs, he split out little sticks as long as my hand and as big as my 2 fingers. Long as my hand, big as 2 fingers. Okay. Near one end, Grandpa cut the stick half through and split one half off. This left him a flat stick with a square piece at one end. Then with a bit, he bored the hole lengthwise. Bored is like hollow out the middle. Through the square part, and with his knife he whittled the wood till it was only a thin shell around the round hole. The flat part of the stick he hollowed out with his knife till it was a little trough. Okay, here's the picture. There they are. See, you take the stick and you scoop out part of it, split it, and then you bore out the middle of this part, and then whittle out this part to make it rounded so that you could stick this in somewhere and it would guide whatever liquid it was into maybe a bucket if you were like making syrup or something. Okay, let's find out. He made dozens of them, and he made 10 new wooden buckets. Sorry, cat hair. I don't know, probably came from his hat. Okay, he had them all ready when the first warm weather came and the sap began to move in the trees. Then he went into the maple woods, and with the bit he bored a hole in each maple tree, and he hammered the round end of the little trough into the hole and set a cedar bucket on the ground under the flat end. The sap, you know, is the blood of a tree. It comes from the roots when the warm weather begins in the spring, and it goes to the very tip of each branch and twig to make the green leaves grow. Well, when the maple sap came to the hole in the tree, it ran out of the tree, down the little trough, and into the bucket. "Oh, didn't it hurt the poor tree?" Laura asked. That's kind of what I was thinking. "No more than it hurts you when you prick your finger and it bleeds," said Pa. So they have a picture of this whole apparatus with the plugs and the buckets right here on this side. So there's a little drip of, like, the sap is kind of like the tree's blood. It carries nutrients and stuff to all the parts of the tree. And so they're just tapping into it, kind of like if you poke your finger and squeeze it, it drips. But of course you don't really stick a plug in there and collect your blood in a bucket. Or if you do, that's kind of weird. I'm not going to lie to you. Every day, Grandpa puts on his boots and his warm coat and his fur cap and goes out into the snowy woods and gathers the sap. With a barrel on a sled, he drives from tree to tree and empties the sap from the buckets into the barrel. Then he hauls it to a big iron kettle that hangs by a chain from a cross timber between 2 trees. He empties the sap into the iron kettle. There is a big bonfire under the kettle, and the sap boils, and Grandpa watches it carefully. The fire must be hot enough to keep the sap boiling, but not hot enough to make it boil over. Every few minutes, the sap must be skimmed. Grandpa skims it with a big, long-handled wooden ladle that he made of basswood. Here's a picture before we turn the page of the kettle with the cross, what do they call it? A cross timber between 2 trees. So that's kind of cool. He used the trees that were there and then just put a kind of like a log, which is a timber, and then there's the big iron kettle and the bonfire. And if you've ever made a bonfire, you know it's kind of hard to control how hot it is. So that takes a lot of talent and a lot of experience. Good job, Grandpa. Okay, so he has the big old ladle. When the sap gets too hot, Grandpa lifts ladlefuls of it high in the air and pours it back slowly. This cools the sap a little and keeps it from boiling too fast. When the sap has boiled down just enough, he fills the buckets with the syrup. After that, he boils the sap until it grains when he cools it in a saucer. The instant the sap is graining, Grandpa jumps to the fire and rakes it all out from beneath the kettle. Then, as fast as he can, he ladles the thick syrup into the milk pans that are standing ready. In the pans, the syrup turns to cakes of hard brown maple sugar. So that's why it's a sugar snow, because Grandpa is making sugar? Laura asked. No, Pa said. It's called a sugar snow because the snow this time of year means that men can make more sugar. You see, this little cold spell and the snow will hold back the leafing of the trees, and that makes a longer run of sap. When there's a long run of sap, it means that Grandpa can make enough maple sugar to last all year for common every day. When he takes his furs to town, he will not need to trade for much store sugar. He will only get a little store sugar to have on the table when company comes. Grandpa must be glad there's a sugar snow, Laura said. Yes, Pa said. He's very glad. He's going to sugar off again next Monday, and he says we must all come. So this is a picture of Grandpa making sugar. Pa's blue eyes twinkled. He had been saving the best for the last, and he said to Ma, Hey, Caroline, there'll be a dance. Ma smiled. She looked very happy, and she laid down her mending for a minute. Oh, Charles, she said. Then she went on with her mending, but she kept on smiling. I'll wear my delaine. And I'm not sure. I guess a delaine is a kind of fabric. Ma's delaine dress was beautiful. It was a dark green with a little pattern all over it that looked like ripe strawberries. A dressmaker had made it in the East, in the place where Ma came from when she married Pa and moved out west to the big woods in Wisconsin. Ma had been very fashionable before she married Pa, and a dressmaker had made all her clothes. The delaine was kept wrapped in paper and laid away. Laura and Mary had never seen Ma wear it, but she had shown it to them once. She had let them touch the beautiful dark red buttons that shaped the basque up the front, and she had shown them how neatly the whalebones were put in the seams inside with hundreds of little crisscross stitches. It showed how important a dance was if Ma was going to wear the beautiful delaine dress. Laura and Mary were excited. They bounced up and down on Pa's knees and asked questions about the dance, until at last he said, Now you girls run along to bed. You'll know all about the dance when you see it. I have to put a new string on my fiddle. And here we have a picture of the fiddle and the lamp and the cat. The whalebones, are in dresses, to make the women skinnier. It's called a corset, really, but sometimes they would sew the whalebones. Or now when people wear a corset, they usually use either like a plastic or a wooden stick, but they used to use whalebones. Of course, they would have to kill the whale to get the bone, so that's illegal now, so don't do that. Okay, there were sticky fingers and sweet mouths to be washed. Then there were prayers to be said. By the time Laura and Mary were snug in their trundle bed, Pa and the fiddle were both singing while he kept time with his foot on the floor. I'm Captain Jinks of the Horse Marines. I feed my horse on corn and beans, and I often go beyond my means, for I'm Captain Jinks of the Horse Marines. I'm captain in the army. I feel like I know that song. I'm going to have to look up the melody for you. But that's over. It's a short chapter this week. Oh, gosh. So the next chapter is Dance at Grandpa's, and that's chapter 8. So, and that's kind of a long chapter. So you can look forward to that one for next Monday. I'm going to look forward to that one for next Monday. See, it's a long chapter. That's all chapter 8. Lucky you. And we'll see you then. It'll be the second week in December, and so that only means one more week till holiday break, and then holiday break we'll take a break from reading probably, and then we'll start again when we come back in January. So remember to plug that into your calendars. Next week 8, following week 9, and then we'll take a short break, and I'll let you know when I'm coming back. Cool? Cool. Alright, I'm going to go back to drinking my tea and talking to my parakeet. He was chirping along with me today. I don't know if you can hear him. And then I'm going to go to bed because it's late. And you should do the same thing. Go to bed. I'll see y'all later. Bye-bye.